پیامها و سخنرانی‌های گردهمایی جهانی ایران آزاد، قسمت سوم.
It's my pleasure to speak with you and to thank you all for your enduring commitment and advocacy on behalf of a free and democratic Iran that is prosperous at home and at peace with its neighbors. In the Declaration of Independence, it says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed." These immortal words ring true today as they did 245 years ago, and they apply not only to the people of the United States as we continually strive to achieve a more perfect union, but to people around the world, including to the people of Iran. Unfortunately, the people of Iran remain blighted with a government that has repeatedly shown no interest in securing anything beyond its own self-preservation, sowing chaos abroad and corruption and repression at home, seeking a pathway towards a nuclear weapon. We need look no further than Iran's recent presidential election, in which Ibrahim Raisi, a hardliner crony of the supreme leader, who is subject to U.S. human rights sanctions, was elected president. Mr. Raisi won a sham election in which a majority of eligible voters showed their disgust by refusing to participate, leading to the lowest voter turnout since 1979. While it remains clear that the supreme leader Khamenei remains the ultimate ruler, it is a further indictment of his rule that he would not only endorse, but tip the scales in favor of a man like Raisi becoming president of Iran, a man who was actively involved in the forcible disappearance and extrajudicial killing of thousands of Iranian dissidents in 1988, a man who was involved in brutal crackdowns against peaceful protesters in both the movement of 2009 and more recent protests of 2019. A man who Amnesty International Secretary General Agnes Callamard recently said must be investigated for crimes against humanity. In the face of such callous disregard for the fundamental rights and freedoms of the Iranian people and the risk that Iran under Khamenei and Raisi create to the entire region and the world, your continued advocacy remains absolutely vital. It is a beacon of hope that one day the people of Iran, the United States, and indeed all the world will rejoice in an Iranian government that is at peace with the international community and works to secure a better future for its people. Thank you again for your hard work, and we continue to stand with you until that day comes of freedom, of respect for human rights, of being part once again of the international community that the Iranian people deserve.
Mrs. Maryam Rajavi, like most members of Congress, I have been following the developments in Iran closely.
خانم مریم رجوی، من نیز مانند اکثر اعضای سنا و کنگره تحولات ایران را از نزدیک و با نگرانی دنبال می‌کنم. نقض حقوق بشر در حکومت ایران رایج است. حکومتی که فاقد مشروعیت است و با سرکوب مردم خود را در قدرت نگاه می‌دارد. روند انتخابات به نفع کاندیدای رژیم و به ضرر مردم ایران تحریف شد. علاوه بر آن، حکومت ایران همچنان به حمایت و تداوم خشونت در کشور و در منطقه ادامه می‌دهد. با وجود این، مردم ایران همچنان به تلاش برای دستیابی به ایرانی دموکراتیک، غیردینی و صلح طلب ادامه می‌دهند. به همین دلیل من هر ایرانی و ایرانی مقیم آمریکا را که برای آینده‌ای بهتر می‌جنگد ستایش می‌کنم. ایستادگی برای یک ایران آزاد و دموکراتیک فقط روی دوش شما نیست. ایالات متحده و جامعه جهانی در حمایت از تلاش‌های شما در کنارتان ایستاده‌اند. حقوق بشر از مدت‌ها پیش پایه‌های سیاست خارجی ایالات متحده بوده است. حقوق بشر باید محور اصلی در رویکرد ایالات متحده با رژیم ایران باشد. سنا و کنگره و دولت بایدن برای ایران و متحدان ما روشن ساختند که ایالات متحده از کسانی که در ایران برای حقوق و آزادی‌های همه ایرانیان می‌جنگند حمایت می‌کند. با احترامات، سناتور شهین.
Sincerely, Senator Jean Shaheen.
Thank you all very much. It is an incredible honor to be speaking to you at the International Convention for a Free Iran. This idea, this sacred hope for Iran, which is a hope for all people, is that we know that whether it's in Iran or the United States, we cherish basic rights such as freedom of expression and the freedom to choose your leaders. The culture and customs and history of Iran and its people are incredible, truly remarkable. They deserve to be celebrated within Iran and around the world, not stifled by authoritarian leaders, fearful of their own people. Like you, I look forward to the day when there is a democratic government in Iran dedicated to the highest ideals of humanity, to safety and security, to nuclear non-proliferation, and the basic respect for human rights, gender equality, and religious and ethnic tolerance. These are foundational freedoms, not of the United States or Iran, but of humanity. And Iran's history has celebrated those very ideals. Unfortunately, we know that the people of Iran have been denied these rights for far too long, decades now. Iranian people have demonstrated, though, remarkable resistance. There is a grit and a greatness in the people of Iran. I've also seen the willingness of Iranians inside their own country to put themselves at great personal risk by engaging in protests, participating in social movements, and finding creative ways to defy the authoritarian Iranian regime. Their desire for democracy, for justice, for freedom outweigh their fear of being injured or taken to jail. The United States is a friend to the Iranian people. I am so proud of that. I remain hopeful that we will someday, in fact, I remain confident that we will someday see the free and open Iran that we all hope for and dream of. We want to see Iran's culture and economy and society thrive, unrestricted by oppressive leaders, working constructively on shared problems and peacefully engaging with its neighbors and the rest of the world. Iran and its people have so much to offer if they are simply given the chance. I congratulate you again on the success of this convention, and I stand with you for a free Iran. I stand with you, with the Iranian people. I stand with you for the highest ideals of humanity. Thank you.
I'm Senator Roy Blunt. I'm honored to join you today by video to support all of those who stand for a free, democratic Iran. The current regime in Iran, as you all know, is simply not sustainable or effective as an option for the Iranian people. Safety and protections, really the most fundamental service that a government should provide to its citizens, but the Ayatollah and his enablers continue to deny the Iranian people basic political, religious, or social freedoms, including the basic right to life itself. Iranian authorities conduct unimaginable horrors, especially against those who dare to speak the truth. These abuses have to stop. The Iranian regime's brutal repressions tied to another basic principle of government, the fundamental right of citizens to determine who they're governed by and to elect leaders who support their beliefs and their well-being. This is not happening in Iran today. By stifling dissent and holding these sham elections, the Iranian government's revealing the truth. It's deeply afraid of its own people and the power the ordinary citizen can have when they're allowed to speak up and demand a different future. I'm encouraged by the protests that have taken place in recent years that reflect these very principles of life. I hope we can see them continue. I truly believe that it's possible to achieve a better, free government in Iran. I believe we have to continue to hold the Iranian regime accountable for its abuses at home and for its aggressive actions around the world. Every day, the regime continues its missile development, support for terrorism, nuclear enrichment, and weapons trafficking. We're less safe than we were the day before. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak today in support of freedom, stability, and democracy. You can be sure that I'll continue to work across the U.S. government to advance these principles.
Hello, I'm Senator Maggie Hassan from New Hampshire. I'm sorry that we couldn't gather together in person, but welcome to the International Convention for a Free Iran. I want to thank everyone here for your work to support the Iranian people and for advocating for their dignity and freedom. I'm proud to call myself an ally and friend in this fight for freedom. And as evidenced by the bipartisan support of this conference, Democrats and Republicans join in solidarity with all of you. I'll continue supporting an American foreign policy that pushes for human rights and stands with democratic movements in oppressive countries. The regime in Tehran must be held accountable for treating women as second-class citizens and for persecuting human rights advocates, journalists, and ethnic minorities. And it especially needs to be held accountable for continuing to support terrorism. I look forward to working with all of you and with the Biden administration to advance a brighter future for the Iranian people. Thank you again to everyone here.
Hi, everyone. This is Senator Joni Ernst, junior senator from the great state of Iowa. Today, I'm honored to come together and share a few words with all of those across the globe who long for a free Iran and to break the chains of authoritarianism. Here in the United States, as ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Subcommittee on Emerging Threats and Capabilities, I've been urging the Biden administration to prioritize keeping America and the world safe from Iran's malign behavior and destabilizing activities. The murderous Iranian regime remains the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism and poses a significant threat to global peace and security. Rewarding Iran for continuing to back Hamas and other terrorist organizations while building up their nuclear arsenal is not the right path to ensuring the safety and security of Americans. The Iranian regime is not an honest broker, and the United States should never go back to the failed Iran nuclear deal. I will continue to urge the President of the United States to remember the threat posed by Iran's leaders as it exists today and take actions toward what is best for peace and security worldwide. I hope the people of Iran can one day be free from the bounds of authoritarianism and support their efforts to throw off the burden of the evil leaders. I look forward to a day when all Iranian men, women, and children gain representation and the rights of free people. Thank you for inviting me to say a few words today. I hear your voices, and I stand with you.
دوستان عزیز و شرکت کنندگان در کنوانسیون بین المللی ایران آزاد در ژوئیه 2021، بسیار متشکرم که از من خواستید در این برنامه صحبت کنم. همانطور که می‌دانید من از تلاش‌های مردم ایران برای تحقق تغییر و دموکراسی در کشورشان حمایت می‌کنم. نسبت به نقض‌های کنونی در ایران نگرانم و از مردم ایران در فراخوان‌هایشان برای برقراری یک دولت دموکراتیک که به این حقوق و آزادی‌ها احترام بگذارد حمایت می‌کنم. همینطور من همچنان به جلوگیری از توسعه برنامه تسلیحات اتمی توسط رژیم ایران متعهدم. آرمان شما شرافتمندانه است و بسیار مهم است که ما به گفتگو در این رابطه ادامه بدهیم. امیدوارم گردهمایی سازنده‌ای داشته باشید و برای همه شما بهترین ها را آرزو دارم. با احترام، جان بوزمن.
I hope it is a productive gathering and I wish you all the best of luck. Sincerely, John Bozeman.
During my time in public service, I've seen dictators fall. Milosevic, Serbia. Gaddafi, Libya. There have been many who have tried to run a government using tyranny and terrorism. And it lasts for a little while, but it won't last forever. And what we have going on in Iran today is not going to last forever. Iran has a great heritage in the past. They were first in math and science and great in architecture, but they've become a country run by people who believe in murder and terror. It will not continue. And I look forward to the day when the country of Iran has new leadership, become part of the civilized nations of the world.
Thank you to all the organizers and sponsors and the tens of thousands of people from around the world attending the 2021 Iran Human Rights and Democracy Conference. And I want to give a special thank you to my friends at the Organization of Iranian American Communities for asking me to be part of this historic event. I'm honored to participate, to demonstrate my support for and to stand with each of you and the Iranian people in their quest for a secular, democratic, and non-nuclear Republic of Iran. As you all are well aware, the recent activity in Iran was not an election where the people of Iran duly elect their next president, but in reality, it was a selection by Iran's supreme leader of a loyalist, Judiciary Chief Ebrahim Raisi, whose rise to power has been marked by repression and injustice and the execution of literally thousands of political dissidents, dating back to the 1988 massacre, which you're all too familiar with. Many who are in attendance at this conference are the mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, and children of the fallen at the hands of the regime and Raisi. But know this, the people of Iran did not speak in this past election. They spoke with their silence. They spoke by refusing to vote in an election where the outcome was preordained and not reflective of the will of the people. By refusing to participate in such a sham, the people of Iran, not the regime, can claim victory. And know this as well. The speakers at this conference are here because we are with you. The 242 bipartisan co-sponsors of H.R. 118 and others who support it in the United States Congress are with you. I am with you. And there is hope. Iran's election this year is vastly different than those that have gone before it. This year's so-called election comes at the regime's most precarious time, as its prospects for survival are being questioned from both sides, inside the regime and outside, by freedom-seeking people in Iran and across the globe. The vulnerability has been on full display since the last Iranian election, with a series of successive uprisings each year since 2017. Significantly, the United States Congress, through the House Representatives Resolution 118, is speaking out. The resolution highlights the desire of the Iranian people to achieve the freedoms they so rightly deserve, as evidenced by the repeated rounds of protest in cities throughout Iran, and urges the Biden administration to make ending the Iranian regime's reign of terror and human rights abuses, while providing unwavering support for the Iranian people's struggle for freedom and a democratic, non-nuclear republic of land, make that the centerpiece of U.S. policy toward Iran. The resolution is also a message to the global community to not let up, to work together in a unified effort to hold Iran accountable for breaching diplomatic privileges and targeting tens of thousands of Iranians, calling for the universal right to vote, free elections, gender, religious, and ethnicity equality, and a foreign policy based on peaceful coexistence and a non-nuclear Iran. The point is, you have friends in and out of the United States government. But change will not and should not come to Iran because other countries want it or even demand it. No, my friends, change must come, and I believe will come, from you and the people of Iran. You are the source and instrument of change. You are the inspiration for change. As the late Senator John McCain said to you just a few years ago, you are the example to the world that those people who are willing to fight and sacrifice for freedom will achieve it. The people of Iran are demonstrating time and time again, year after year, that they're willing to make the sacrifices for freedom. In particular, the youth of Iran, the students and younger generation of Iran, are leading the efforts for a more inclusive society, a society where all are treated equally, one that does not discriminate based on gender, ethnicity, or class. These young people see the value to the world of an Iranian society that freely allows the Persian people to showcase their talents in business and science and the arts. As with all countries, but particularly Iran, the future lies in its youth. Today, it is the youth of Iran that is also a beacon of hope. Time and time again, it is the Iranian students and youth that are leading the way for freedom in Iran. Major uprisings in December 2017 signaled that the regime change is within reach. January 2018 protests dispelled the false narrative that there was a struggle between hardliners and moderates within the regime. The November 2019 uprising resulting in even harsher repression by the regime. And in January 2020, nationwide protests were triggered by a cover-up orchestrated by the regime after the IRGC shot down a Ukrainian airliner. Students and others took to the streets demanding change. But change, true change, lasting change, does not come quickly or easily. True change, lasting change will come only through continued determination, ongoing commitment, and lasting sacrifice, characteristics possessed by all freedom-loving Iranians. It was the same determination, commitment, and sacrifice seen and heard during America's civil rights movement, as time and time again, demonstrators sang the lyrics of one of the many great freedom songs. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. The challenges for a secular, democratic, and non-nuclear Iran still lie ahead. So my charge to you as this conference concludes is to never give up. Never lose sight of the quest for freedom. Keep on a-walking, keep on a-talking, keep on a-marching toward freedom land, and in so doing, don't let nobody turn you around. Thank you all very, very much.
Madam Rajavi and the NCRI, we join with you again this year to reaffirm our support for you and for the Iranian people. The Iranian people deserve peace, they deserve prosperity, basic human rights, and freedom. They also deserve free and fair elections, truly democratic elections, not the sham presidential election that recently occurred in Iran, where President Ibrahim Raisi was named president. The people didn't have a choice. The people of Iran recognized this election for what it was, a fraud. That's why so many of them boycotted the election, to send a message to the supreme leader and the mullahs that this was not the type of election that they wanted to participate in. We know that Raisi was handpicked by the supreme leader and his henchmen. He has a long history of violating human rights. He was involved in the murder of over 30,000 political prisoners. His victims were tortured, raped, murdered, and discarded in unmarked graves where their family members could never even properly bury them or know where they are. Truly disturbing. The United Nations should investigate these murders and should not give any legitimacy to the presidency of Ibrahim Raisi. According to Amnesty International, Raisi also presided over the crackdown on peaceful protesters, on defenders of human rights, of religious minorities in Iran. The fact that Raisi was handpicked by the supreme leader just tells you that this regime has no intention of changing. They continue to support terrorism. They continue to develop nuclear weapons, to develop missiles. They continue to support so much harm around the world and to disrupt peace. But we know, fortunately, that there is an alternative and there is hope for the Iranian people. Mrs. Rajavi and the NCRI have a 10-point plan that envisions a peaceful future for Iran, a democratic future for Iran. Their 10-point plan includes religious freedom, but religious separation of church and state. It includes universal suffrage, gender equality, and a non-nuclear Iran that can work with the rest of the world and will be a peaceful and prosperous Iran. It is time for all leaders of free countries around the world to stand together and to stand with the people of Iran and know that there is an alternative with the NCRI for a free and peaceful Iran. I call on President Biden to reject any appeasement of the Supreme Leader Khomeini or the newly elected president in Iran. It's time to reimpose tougher sanctions on Iran. We should not re-enter the weak JCPOA. Under the JCPOA, Iran got access to a lot of cash. Did they use those resources to help their own people, especially during the devastating pandemic and what Iran went through on COVID, or with their economic circumstances? No, they continued to invest in terrorism, in their nuclear weapons program, in causing conflict around the world. The JCPOA also failed to deal with Iran's malign behavior in the Middle East and also failed to deal with its terrorist proxies. And those were huge omissions. The mullahs only understand one thing. They only understand strength. It is time for the Biden administration and leaders around the world to impose a maximum pressure campaign on Iran. We cannot allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. We cannot allow Iran to develop intercontinental ballistic missiles, which have the capability of delivering a nuclear weapon to the United States or to other countries around the world with devastating impact. We cannot allow Iran to continue to support groups or themselves maim and kill people and commit terrorist acts. It is time for the free countries of the world to join together to stop Iran's reign of terror, to end the tyranny that the Iranian people have unfortunately been subjected to. We have seen time and time again the bravery of the Iranian people, the protests that they have engaged in. Iranians from all walks of life have taken to the street, and they've taken to the street to ask for their freedom, to ask for prosperity and peace, to say, we want regime change. It is clear that it is time to support the Iranian people fully, to stand with the NCRI. We're at a critical moment. Let's vow to make 2021 the year where freedom truly reigns for the people of Iran.
I would like to thank the leadership and the delegation of the U.S. Senator from both parties for their continued support for the Iranian people and their just call for freedom and democracy. You have shown that a right policy on Iran can be possible with bipartisan support and commitment to stand with the Iranian people and their struggle for democracy, freedom, and secular democratic republic, and their fight against tyranny and dictatorship. Thank you for keeping the cause of human rights and democracy for the people of Iran at the center of the U.S. policy on Iran. Now it is time to hold Rئیس and other criminals accountable for their crimes, and U.S. Senator and Congress and the United Nations should recognize the 1988 massacre as genocide. Thank you very much.
شررناکم، ساعد در دستم و بیباکم، شورش ایرانی بیدارم. حاضر حاضر حاضر، مادر خون گشته جگر حاضر، روی پر از برف پدر حاضر، دیده خورشید به در حاضر. حاضر حاضر حاضر، میهن تبعیدیم ای ایران، خانه خورشیدیم ای ایران، عشق تو و شوق خطر. حاضر 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 حاضر. شررناکم، ساعد در دستم و بیباکم، شورش ایرانی بیدارم. حاضر حاضر حاضر، مادر خون گشته جگر حاضر، روی پر از برف پدر حاضر، دیده خورشید به در حاضر. حاضر حاضر حاضر، میهن تبعیدیم ای ایران، خانه خورشیدیم ای ایران، عشق تو و شوق خطر. حاضر